Hello and welcome to the Driver Hire podcast. My name's Tony from Driver Hire Croydon and Sutton.
Hello, I'm Gary from Driver Hire in Colchester.
We represent two of Driver Hire Nationwide's network of over 100 offices. And we decided to get together to create a series of regular podcasts for people who want to know more about driver hire, but principally to provide hints, tips and tricks to help our drivers be the very best that they can be. Hi Gary, how you doing?
Very well, Tony. Lovely to see you again. The beard's looking good.
Thank you. Yes, a bit of grooming this week. Yes, thank you. How are you? How's things in Colchester?
Very good, very busy. We're working very hard with the council doing some local bagging deliveries, which is slightly different for us.
Okay, bagging, what's that?
Well, they still have recycling bags, so we're out for the next 2 weeks delivering recycling bags to every resident in the Colchester area.
Okay, cool. Right, so this week, what are we going to be talking about? Well, actually, we had a bit of fun last week, and this is a little follow-up to what we learned last week. So what were we doing last week, Gary?
We went to see a lovely guy called Lawrence over at NDC to learn how to get a HGV licence. So it was a really good day, actually. We went to a National Driving Centre based here in Croydon, and we met with the operations manager there, and we shot a video, which you can find on YouTube, all about how a driver with a car, van licence, Cat B licence, might want to upgrade to either a truck or a bus. So really, I suppose this is just about kind of sharing what we learned last week. Yeah, I mean, I thought I knew a little bit how to get your licence, but he threw so much information at us, and it's great. And now we've got that video to help us, and today's podcast will hopefully make people listen and learn how to get the HGV licence.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose the biggest takeaway was that we are a couple of old duffers, and we passed our tests. Hang on. So I think, mine was 1989. How about you, Gary?
1984.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm not sure we even had tachographs in trucks then, did we?
Oh, no, definitely not.
So the process was very different. And there will be a lot of drivers out there who did pass their tests back in the 80s, early 90s. And it was very different. And speaking for me, I simply got my medical provisional, went along to a training school, did a week's training course, took my test on the last day. You did a reversing exercise, went out for a drive. Examiner asked a few questions at the end, what's the sequence of traffic lights or, that kind of stuff. And they say, yes, you passed. Well, no, you haven't. Well, in my case, no, you haven't. But the second week I went back and I did pass, which was good. But it was quite a simple process. Was yours similar?
Well, I done mine in the army, and I don't know about the medical side of things, and so it was mostly all done for me. But all we done was drive around an airfield, where we done all our manoeuvring, then drive around the streets of Beverley, I think it was, off the top of my head, or Leconfield, round that way, and then sit down at the end, do a few highway code questions, and we were signed off. I was third time, by the way, Tony, so don't feel so bad.
You've never told me that before, Gary.
Don't let all the secrets out.
So today, there are some things that are the same, but there's a huge amount that's different, and this is what we learned last week. So let's kind of talk through that. So step one is about making sure you got the right things on your driving license, and you can't get yourself a provisional category C or D, so C being truck and D being bus. You can't get yourself a provisional unless you do have a car license, which sounds obvious, although it wasn't the case back in the day. You could actually be a double L driver and take your car test in a truck and your truck at the same time, which sounds really weird thinking back on it now. That's not how I did it, but it could be done. And the army did use that quite a lot, didn't they?
They did, but I learned in a little 3-ton lorry. I mean, it was quite minute, a little Bedford TK it was.
Yes, certainly a relic, the truck, not you.
Both of us, I think.
So today, you still need to get that provisional license. It's a pretty simple process. You need to get a couple of forms. There's a D2 form and a D4 form. The D2 being the license application, the D4 being the medical. And you take the D4 along to a doctor, your doctor, or there are private doctors that will do this. And you don't have to pay for the provisional. You do have to pay for the medical. Going rate is, circa £100, give or take, and send it off. So the license itself is free, and that takes a week or so to come back. And at that point, you can start your training. So today, unlike the one test that Gary and I took, there are 4 parts to the training and testing now. So how does that start then, Gary?
Well, module 1 is 2 parts. Part 1 is theory, and part 2 is hazard perception. And you have to go to a DVLA test centre. In my case, there'd be one at Ipswich or Chelmsford. That's our local one. There's most probably one in Croydon for you, Tony, but they're all throughout the country. And the cost for these two, there's 2 parts to it, but total £37.
Okay, so the 1A is multiple choice theory?
Yes, it is.
And 1B is the hazard perception, very similar to what car drivers would have done in their car test. So that's 1A and 1B. Part 2 is CPC case studies. So CPC, what's that? CPC is the Certificate of Professional Competence. And this is the first occasion that a trainee driver will get to demonstrate their professional competence. And this CPC is again at the Government Test Centre. And most people will probably do 1A, 1B, and part 2 all at the same time on the same day. You don't have to, you can do them separately, but logically you would study for them and go to the test centre to do it all at once. But the CPC syllabus covers a huge amount of stuff and a great opportunity to demonstrate your understanding. So that's everything from vehicle characteristics, transmission systems, fuel consumption, load safety, the list goes on. But lots to do with regulations specific to driving commercial vehicles.
Okay. Does it cover driver's hours as well, Tony?
There's a little bit of that in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing because back in the day, you didn't have to even know the first thing about driver's hours rules to pass a truck test. It staggered me. I learnt it from a little book, pre-internet. But yeah, it was never part of the test, but it certainly is now.
Yeah. And the cost for this one, I believe, is £55.
That's right, Gary. Yeah, £55. Yeah. Okay. So the order in which you take these tests, you've got to do 1A and 1B before you can actually go and do a driving test, but you don't have to do part 2 CPC. But when we were talking to Lawrence last week, the way that they manage the progression for trainees is to get all the theory done first. And the reason for that, in his mind, is if you go and pass your driving tests and you've got your ticket to drive, but you can't actually do anything with it, it's a bit of a hollow victory. So what they do at National Driving Centre is get everybody completely theoried up before they move on to the practical training. And so the first part of the practical is part 3, which is the driving test. Now, this is the bit that's probably most similar to that which we knew back in the day, albeit that you've done all the theory first this time. So you start off with a manoeuvre off-road. It's a reversing exercise, and you have to reverse what we call blindside, which is round to the left. It's the side you can see less of, and then it switches to the good side where you can see over your shoulder, and you're backing it into a bay of cones, and hopefully not squashing any of them. The examiner may stop the test there if you've killed a couple of cones, but other than that, you'll be going out on the road for a drive. And this is where you get to demonstrate your ability to control safely that bigger vehicle.
I believe the driving test is about an hour to an hour and a quarter, depending on the traffic and driving conditions out there, Tony.
Yeah. So it'll take that long for the examiner to take you to all the different situations that he needs to see, particular types of junctions, roundabouts, traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, all those different things. So a test route will include, a lot of those different things. And in some parts of the country, even motorway driving or A-road driving, big dual carriageways and whatnot. So it just depends where the test centre is. Around here, if you're going to drive on the M25, it would take you way more than an hour and a quarter to get out there and back. Because it's very, very dense urban area here. So that's part 3. And then part 4 is, I think, my favourite bit of the new testing system. So part 4 is a practical demonstration of your understanding of the vehicle and load safety. Now, again, you could do this together. Some people will do part 3 and come back and do part 4. But either way around, it's a separate 4th part of the test. Now, we learned a lot of stuff the hard way. And in previous podcasts, we've talked about load restraint, load security. But, if I'm entirely honest, the first time I used a ratchet strap was when I had to strap a load down and take it out for a drive. I guess it was kind of probably down to luck that nothing serious happened because I was learning on the job. But that's not the case these days.
No, the practical demonstration is an in-depth daily walk-around check. You're telling the examiner what you're looking for in the vehicle, if the vehicle's fit to be on the road and things like that. And then you're demonstrating how to secure a load.
And so the examiner has it's a load safety demonstration trolley. So it's like a big roll cage, a sort of steel frame thing. And within it, he'll have ratchet straps, he'll have load restraint bars, he'll have chains, and he may ask you, Gary, if you were going to be taking a load of timber, which of these devices would you use? And you would say, well, for timber, I'd use the ratchet strap. And he would say, right, okay, can you simulate how you would do that by strapping that strap over this load safety demonstration trolley? And that's what you do. And he might ask you how you would secure steel, and it would be with chains, and he would ask you how to, which one of the devices you'd use, and ask you to actually demonstrate that. So you have to learn all the different load restraint types because you don't know which one is going to ask you to demonstrate.
Yeah. And the test on that, I believe, is 20 minutes to 30 minutes at a local DVLA test centre, same as where you take your driving test as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I am so behind this idea. I mean, it's been around for a while now, but I just think that a new driver today is going to have had more training and testing than back in the day. And one of the things that, you and I are really passionate about is getting new drivers into the industry. And my view, every single driver had to do their first shift once. And in my case, there was a lot of luck and guesswork in that first shift. But today, a new driver has never been as well trained as they are today. And that can only help in giving comfort to new employers for a driver coming in.
Yeah, far better than when I went down the road and pulled into a lay-by for my first commercial shift and pulled the curtains and, tried to pull the curtains because I had no idea how to do it. And you learn how to do things before you go out there in the real world and earn some money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's a hard job, and giving new drivers as many tools as possible before they start that job has got to be a good thing.
Yeah. So what did Lawrence have to say? What was the difference of the new person coming along and learning to drive? What was the main difference, Tony?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. So if you jump in a commercial vehicle for the first time, there are going to be things that are alien to you. And we were keen to try and understand what things caught people out. So the biggest thing was vision. So when you're driving a commercial vehicle, your view is restricted. I mean, if you think about it, if you're used to driving a car, as long as you can turn your head round, you've got pretty much 360-degree vision out of it. And of course, with a lorry, you've got whatever you're carrying, you've got a great big load behind you one way or the other. So your vision is way more restricted. And we talked about this in previous episodes as well. Just even disregarding the view behind, you've got so much that restricts your view, even looking forward. So, you've got great big mirrors at the sides to help you see backwards, but of course you can't see what's behind the mirror. So what Lawrence's advice to new drivers was to be really active in the cab. This doesn't come across well on a podcast, but I'm jumping around in my seat now, trying to demonstrate how you might kind of move your head and look behind your mirrors and move your body to look into your blind spots and really, really important. I've heard so many stories of truck drivers missing pedestrians walking across a high street because they were blind to them behind the mirror. So being active in your cab, really important. So the vision, also the spatial awareness. If you're going to take a left turn, you need to make space for that left turn because you don't want to be taking the street furniture in any pedestrian that's standing on the corner with you, quite obviously. So it's about how you position the vehicle. It's about how much space you need to make the maneuvers that you need to make. And then the other thing was about the brakes. So for anybody that's never put their foot on an air brake before, it's going to feel a little bit different.
It definitely it is very different. There's no getting away from it. It's stopping a 20-ton truck or whatever you're driving. You need something there to help you, and it definitely kicks in quite quickly, and it's a lot sharper than your car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, a car uses hydraulic brakes. So without trying to get too technical about it, what's happening is you've got a piston pushing fluid down towards the brake calipers, and fluid can have a slight sponginess to it. Trucks use pressurized air. And of course, anybody that's never driven a truck but has been alongside one in traffic and heard the truck dumping its air when the compressors put too much into the tanks will know what that sounds like. So it's a heavily pressurized system and very powerful. So what happens is you touch the brake and you've got more braking force than if you absolutely thumped your foot hard on the pedal in a car or a van. So the technique, really, for anybody who's never used air brakes before, is you plan the braking much earlier. You rest your foot on the pedal just to feel, and then you just squeeze it a little harder if you need to. But like all things in life, when you get used to it, it's really simple, really easy, but it does catch new trainees out.
Yeah, what you've just described, I had never thought about driving like that whatsoever. I just put the foot on and I brake, but I've been doing it for years, on and off. And thank you, Tony.
but you must be doing it like that. Otherwise, you'd have your nose pressed up against the windscreen.
Yeah, very much so. You just don't realise you're doing it.
So the other thing is about forward planning and anticipation. So, a much larger vehicle takes longer to stop, and it's not nippy to accelerate away. So really what you want to try and do is keep the vehicle moving wherever you can. And the way in which you keep a vehicle like that moving is to arrive at traffic lights when they're green, to arrive at roundabouts when they're clear. It's not a matter of luck, it's a matter of planning. It's about looking further ahead, planning your maneuvers way ahead. If you can see a traffic light's green in the distance, it's probably going to be red by the time you get there. And that's why you'll see commercial vehicle drivers slow down and anticipate that change. And then, if possible, try and arrive with the next green phase and just flow through. And the same with gaps on roundabouts.
Yeah, very, very much so. So we've talked about how to get your license, but why would you not get your license, Tony? That's the really big question I have here.
I guess that there's two things, I think. The first one is just straight cold hard cash. The fag packet maths we did says that you're probably going to be around about £2.50 an hour better off. And on a 40-hour week, 40 times £2.50 is £100. £100 over 52 weeks of the year is just over £5,000. So if you're going to earn £5,000 a year more, well, that makes perfect sense why you might want to make that investment. So that's kind of thing number one. But thing number two is the job's different and, in my opinion, more interesting.
Oh, far better. I mean, van driving, all of us can jump in a van and go driving. And if we take what's been happening in the last 12 months, the vans are out there, there's everyone jumping in the van, and the HGV work with the specialised licence, we've all been called upon and we've been looked at as heroes, the HGV hero. And it's been really nice to be thanked and looked at in a favourable light for a change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different job. And it's a skill, it's a professional qualification, and the driver CPC bears that out. It's way more responsibility, and it's just a much more interesting job. You also, not exclusively, but you tend to do more distance and less deliveries in a bigger vehicle, whereas the vehicle that will do the most deliveries is the small one that can get to all the residential places. You hear these stories of multi-drop van drivers doing 200 parcels a day or something, but it's just not the way it works in a larger vehicle.
Yeah, and it's the different type of work you have with your license as well. I've worked in the sewerage industry, and you just drove to a spot and you might spend a long time on site. So you're using your license to get you to and from site, but you're doing another job while you're there. And it in the case of lots of different things, like a scaffolder and so on. So it can lead to other work and different money as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. And so the kind of last thing to talk about really is, yes, the license is it's like the entry ticket, the table stakes. Yes, you can't drive the vehicle without it, but actually that's a given once you're in the job. The thing that the employer really wants from you is the right attitude to the work.
From our very first podcast we've done, Tony, from our hints, tips and so on, it's the attitude and flexibility. You have the right mentality when you come back from finishing your deliveries, phoning up and saying, I'm empty, what do you want me to do? I'm back at the yard, can I wash my vehicle down? What else would you like me to do? Having the flexibility, all the things the employer likes to see in us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good.
Well, I think we've covered why you want to get your license and how to get your license here, Tony, and how many jobs I've got advertised. Let's get some of these people in here and get the license sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's been great. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. And we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, and please have a look at the video and listen to Lawrence. He's got some really good little tips on there as well on how to get your license.
So if you have enjoyed it, please do rate, review and subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Driver Hire Podcast, and thank you very much.
And as goodbye from myself, Gary Richards at the Colchester office.
And from me, Tony Goacher from the Croydon and Sutton office. If you'd like to get in touch with us, along with all the other driver hire offices, you can find us at driverhire.co.uk.
Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.